Black folks are back out on the climb on the last day of the summer, and a beautiful bonnet blue day it is in San Francisco. Tomorrow will probably be like unto it, so we'll see how far we get tomorrow. Different business to take care of today, and I tend to work my commuting and my business in together and just commute by walking to as many things as I can. So it gets my walk done, it gives me a chance to come through the different parks and sit and rest and talk about really hard subjects. I was listening to Tony Gaskins yesterday, and the video in question, I'll put it in the description, about unsolicited opinions. There's a lot of wisdom in that video. But as we transition away from Mr. Perry and all that, there was something that he said there that was very important, and it also relates to our previous conversations on why we hate watch. He talked about one side of it, and I'm going to link the two together, and I'm going to talk about how we take our power back, okay? The first thing that I want you to take into account is as follows. And then I'll explain what Tony Gaskins said. No mortal man is God. Period. The only exception that a Christian can make on this is Jesus Christ, but of course, he is the immortal God in human flesh. So really, that's not really an exception. He dies no more forever. He did have the full human experience of mortality as part of his eternity. But with that only possible exception, no mortal man is God, and no mortal woman is either. So let's put that down first, so that we recognize that it does not matter what someone on the internet, including me, has to say. Because like I tell y'all all the time, when you get tired of listening to me, that's what you do, y'all. I am purposely building my channel slowly and carefully because I'm not trying to do what Aaron Davis, a subscriber, said and build a plantation. Well, what's a plantation really? That is a white man and often a white woman who want to be worshipped as, depending on where they came from, Odin and Freya, or Zeus and Hera, or Jupiter and Juno, depending on what part of Europe they came from and how the Renaissance impacted them. People who wanted to have the right of life and death and to dispose of human beings how they would. And that is what they did for 246 years. And had the audacity, Mr. John C. Calhoun, whose paintings almost show you that man was possessed with evil. Even in his time, they noticed the fierce evil in this man's countenance, in his face. Had the audacity to say that the whole African race has no purpose but to serve the master race, and that slavery is a positive good. Had the audacity to say that. But that's what happens when you give yourself over to evil. And this is what these men were on. But they were not alone. Certainly they were not alone. Europeans have not been alone in this. Go back in history far enough. You will find mortal men constantly wanting worship of God. And when they can't get it, they generally punch down on a woman. Adam punched down on Eve. His sons do exactly the same thing. So now let me put down what Tony Gaskins had to say so we can get this wisdom, because this doesn't need to be a long video. He said, if you listen to me because you're learning from me, then I welcome you. But if you're just listening to me because it's me, just because you adore me, you are in idolatry and you need to repent of your sins. That's idolatry, because you have now decided that the person is always right because of who it is instead of critically listening and learning. That's idolatry. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, this goes both ways, because I now have been around enough churches and seen enough churches online to know that people spend a lot of time in some churches talking with Satan. And because they're so focused on him, they don't recognize that worship is what you give worth to. So even though you say you don't serve someone and you don't like that someone, if you give them all your attention, you are still in the act of worshiping them. Emotion does not matter. So I'll take 4 content creators, since I know approximately what overlap I sit in, okay? I'm going to take 4 content creators. We're going to do a light side and a dark side based on the audience that I have. I would presume that most of the people in my algorithm would put me and, let's say, Themis from Themis and Thoth on the light side, and would probably have Kevin Samuels and maybe Just Pearly Things on the dark side, probably, for this algorithm. And then there are channels that are constantly feeding us input on people we either love or hate. Okay? Here is the challenge. The only thing different, if you were to get obsessed with everything that I had to say and everything that Themis had to say, or be obsessed hating everything Kevin Samuels had to say, or Just Pearly Things has to say, because one is dead and one is alive. It's like someone did a contest between Stockton Rush and James Cameron. I'm like, I'm not going to watch that, because that score is up to infinity to 1. Infinity is you still alive. So there you go. That's the difference there. But people who are devoted to any of us 4 and are just devoted because we don't care, because that person is on, they gotta be right, I gotta be there, I gotta listen to what they have to say, are in idolatry. A lot of our hate watching has to do with the fact that we assign so much value to what that person is saying, even if we'll use one of Confidence with Love's concepts. You know, you have godlings and, of course, goddesslings, and you have over here Satans and Satanettes. But it does not matter. Whatever you apply worth to, whether your emotions are good or bad, whether you feel good or bad about whatever that is, that's where you're putting your worship. Mr. Perry is a billionaire. And like Donald Trump and the 2 billionaires that went down with Stockton Rush, who was a high millionaire, we tend to give attention and think of them as important because so many people in our culture worship money and status and access and how they think that's going to position them as a god or goddess. And we tend to give more attention in this culture to those people than we should, because many of us, poor or rich, it matters not, have this idea that money is going to be the thing that's going to change our situation and is going to let us have the life we feel we deserve. Again, that's not even a question of whether you're poor or rich. Poor people just don't have money, but they have a lot of the same attitudes. You know, it's really rich to hear poor black men and women, relative to the rich history of this country, talking about what they're going to do when they become high value. And sitting up there, and I'm listening to them talking about, okay, as someone who is able to study some history, who can look both ways, no. Real wealthy people already know you're poor from how you talk about having money. Real wealthy people already know you're poor because you don't know how to set up your friendships and your relationships to be able to increase it. You don't know about complementary matches. You don't know about how generational wealth is actually built. You don't know that having multiple women is the most destructive habit for a man of his wealth. You just talk about you gonna get enough money and buy everything you think you need to be somebody at the slave market. Real rich people already know that. Real wealthy people already know that. But because we think that money is the thing that's going to do it for us, we go into idolatry to people who have significant amounts of it. You know, Donald Trump as president does not have the temperament, does not have the governmental experience. But because there are enough white men largely, and some black men largely, who want to live vicariously for the idea that they too can be unqualified and reign. They too can get enough money and get a position of be powerful in a petty sense over other people and control other people's lives. They're going to go for that. And some black men go for that too. And some women back that foolery up. Well, same thing goes on in the black community. Same thing. you're going to put somebody that we feel is high value out there, have him say something that is absolutely not it. Now, in fairness to him, it was a small segment that people have picked out. I've listened to more of it. But it's absolutely not it. But the reason that we took it was necessary to sit and talk about this for so long is because why? Because he's in a position he really doesn't need to be in. Because why? We think it's important because he has entertained us and because he's now a billionaire. Because we worship him being amused and we worship money in this country. Bread, greenbacks, and circuses, they're only one step different from the decline and fall of the entire Roman Empire. We still have greenbacks. I have a friend of mine who keeps talking about the USD is finished. Nah, not yet, brother. Nah, not yet. Because I went and got my business done today in USD, and this stuff you talking about, not yet. But the obsession over control of those greenbacks, because we think that's going to do something. When that money says, in God we trust, we thought we were looking at God. And God looks a whole lot like an Anglo-Saxon white man. Ain't nobody read Jesus' genealogy yet. And no, ain't no way the Lord looks anything like George Washington. That's a video for another day. The point I'm trying to make is, check yourself before you wreck yourself. As a Christian, I'm bound to tell you, the gods that were made under these heavens, including all mortal people, shall perish out from under the heavens. That's actually said in Jeremiah. That was the phrase that the children of Israel were to use to talk to other groups of people who had not been exposed. So what you basically said is, okay, whatever your worship that was created in this earth will perish with the earth. You need to worship the creator of heaven and earth. That's how that conversation was going to go out. I'm obligated to tell you that. Anything made and temporal in this earth that you worship is going to leave here with the earth and will be gone. And you will go with it directly into the lake of fire. I'm obligated to tell you that. I'm also obligated to tell you that the maker of heaven and earth, God, did not want you to be lost, and that you can find a man to worship if you must. Just make sure he's also God. And that would be Jesus Christ himself. Not some blonde, blue-eyed white man. Look at his genealogy. He's mostly ancient Jewish and partially Hamitic as well, part Canaanite. Just for those that need to know. By the one-drop rule, yes, he would be black in the United States. For those that need to know. But that's not the point. The point is that you have a sin debt. You've done some things that were wrong, and God's standard is perfection. However, Jesus Christ made it possible by dying on the cross for those sins and rising again on the third day for you to be forgiven in those sins because he has paid it all. So once you trust in him, God counts his righteousness to your account. I'm obligated to tell you that. On a general level, though, to get back to a general level, you don't have to be in idolatry to anybody on this screen. If you didn't like what I had to say about Jesus Christ, you could click me off at any time and just run the video forward. You can do that. Why? Because I'm not your God. I'm telling you who God is. But if you're not a Christian, you're not obligated to believe me about that. That's up to you. Many are called, few are chosen. In the meantime, in between time, no matter what your choice is for the spiritual realm, you got to stop listening to these people online. We have got to stop listening to these people online as if these mortals are gods. 40 years from now, I'm going to sound more like this, and all that you see that's just beginning to go gray will be gray if it is there at all. I too am mortal. I shall age, I shall weaken, and I shall die. Just like you are mortal, you shall age, you shall weaken, and you shall die. We are not in a position to sit as gods over one another because of this prevailing reality. I don't give advice about relationships except how to stay out of bad ones. I've been really good at that. But I'm still in the process of navigating my life as a single woman, being very content with what I can get up and do anytime I darn well please, and thinking to myself that there's only one man in all of creation, and if somehow God does not have a man for me in all of creation, what will I have missed? Absolutely nothing of importance. Because God, being the designer, can't miss. If he doesn't have a man for me, I would have missed nothing. So I don't give advice about how to do relationships, and I don't center them as important because that's not my experience. I can't give you good advice about that. That's not the page I'm on. I'm on 1 Corinthians 7, where it talks about the single woman only has to care about how she pleases the Lord. And if you get married, you're going to have extra trouble in your life, and you can be spared all that. That's the page I'm on. As a Christian woman, I have a right to be on that page. But I can't talk to you about Christian marriage with any kind of authority. I can tell you what the Bible says. I can tell you about good examples that I know, including my own parents. But you really want to talk to someone who has success in that area. Please stop listening to people because they are billionaires, because they are... what's the term I'm looking for? They have a woman hiding out somewhere from whom they extracted a son. And you get advice about how to do love from him because he's a billionaire. No. Now, Tony Gaskins, who I mentioned. Tony Gaskins is a millionaire, but he's also been married for 15 years to the mother of his children. Tony Gaskins did it right. He's a husband, and a very involved husband and father with his family. He's also a millionaire. And he became a millionaire because when he and his wife met in their early 20s, he realized this ain't gonna get it. But they were equally yoked then. But he realized this ain't gonna get it. He also admits that he was toxic because he looked at what she was studying and expected to jump on the gravy train. But then when he got married, the Lord was like, no, it didn't hurt that she left him too. She left him right there. He decided he wanted his family and went and became a millionaire because of it. Built 50 different businesses. Because I'm working on a book right now, he has a book summit coming up. I'm giving some serious thought to attending that, actually. I know it's not too far over the hill now. Now that we're down at the end of the summer, I got to find out. But he's doing business that's helpful to thousands and thousands of people, and a lot of them are black women. There's not as many black men because, like, I get on black men's nerves sometimes, so does he, because he out here putting out the game. He's talking about the toxic ways that he saw his peers and what he used to do and telling women how to avoid it. And that gets him in trouble. But he's helped a lot of people through Tony Gaskins Academy. And he advises people on what he has experience in. That's very important. And this is why he also said, look, if you're learning from me, you are allowing me to speak into your life, then listen to me because you're learning from me. But don't just come over here because I'm Tony Gaskins. That is idolatry. And the problem with idolatry is that here and also hereafter, it damns you. Idolatry will have you out there listening to people who, by virtue of not always being right, by virtue of being human, will have you out there hanging on the word of people that are not qualified to advise you in all areas of your life. Idolatry will have you out there spending more time listening to people you hate, but giving worship to evil because that's what you're locked in on. Idolatry is damning, even in the general sense. Because all that time you spend looking up behind someone else for good or evil is time you need to be spending what? Learning. I'm going to follow the lead of Tony Gaskins on this. I appreciate those of you that allow me to speak into your life. I appreciate those who solicit my opinions, as he said. And I am going to put that in the description when I get home. I appreciate that. I thank you for trusting me. But if you ever just catch yourself just talking about, oh, just Deanne is all this and all that, please stop. I am not trying to be your goddess. I am not qualified. My master will take me away from here if I try to get in his spot because I know better. So don't feel the need to do all that. What we want to do is listen to learn. As it said, a stop clock is right twice a day. If you say that Deanne Matthews and Themis of Thieves of Thought is always right, I'm going to have to look at you as cockeyed as I would look at someone who said that Kevin Samuels and Just Pearly Things are always wrong. Neither of those things are true. A stop clock is right twice a day. I mean, there was, even with President Trump, while he was in office, former President Trump, there were about in 4 years, he was on television every day. There are about 6 things he did that I agreed with. And about 20% of his policy. So that's about right. 1 out of every 5 times, I can agree with what he had to say. Every so often, he stumbled up on some real wisdom. Every so often. Even he's not always wrong. Not so much that I spent more than 1/10 of a second thinking about supporting him, but I can acknowledge what he did well. He's a mortal man, meaning he has access to all the common grace that anybody else does. Occasionally, he can be right. I do my best to get it right when I come to you, but y'all have seen me had to make corrections live. Sometimes that happens because I'm a mortal woman. And what you want to do is remember, listen to learn. Don't apply all your love. See, you're going to be in a wreck like over yonders. You hear all that. You're going to get yourself into a wreck of a situation in your life, loving or hating someone to the point of worship, to where you just apply all this value. If there's any sector on YouTube like that for you, that's idolatry just spread out. And again, idolatry damns you. And the way it damns you, and I'm using this term in the sense of condemns you to punishment, in the sense of the general sense, is that right now, if you're not learning skills that you need to learn, if you're not learning skills that will get you out of these arguments about, we're going to sit up and talk about, well, we make $43,000 and we make $48,000. All y'all have is earned income. Y'all sitting up here and not thinking about how we learn some other skills so we can get complementary skills. You're not learning what those are. The concept of hell on earth is a little bit overdrawn because I don't think most people can comprehend the badness of hell where there is no common grace. Even in a war zone, if it's a warm day like this and a peaceful day, you do get a little bit of common grace. But although the concept is a little bit underwhelming, I can tell you this. Near infinite regret that some of us are going to be in, having spent all this time listening to people that had no power and no authority, no ability, nor desire to help us, who just wanted to run their little online plantation and exploit us. A lifetime of regret is a prelude of one of the things about hell. And because the economy is shifting, should you find yourself in a permanent underclass, the key term that I want you to understand is permanent. You pass a certain age, become physically disabled, no longer able to have access to use YouTube the way you would to pick up new skills, and you're done there. You're stuck. At 42, I have to think about this as well. I'm doing really well right now in terms of being able to get myself in the condition I need to, but I have to continue to work. There's no guarantee. I have to continue to learn. And I really wish that instead of hate watching or love watching and just sniffing up behind people, that more of us would really recognize it does not matter what these YouTube personalities have to say. They are not God. They cannot save you or damn you. You actually have responsibility for determining that, even in the earth, for yourself. Now, as a Christian who is aware of the arguments about predestination and free will, I am closer to, for those who are really into this, I am more aligned with the predestination view, because the Bible clearly says, although I'm not a Calvinist, that's a conversation for another day for anybody who's interested. Long before John Calvin, Jesus said to his disciples, "Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you." So God's choice is first. And so there's a call and there's a response. There's a call and there's a response. We black folks, we don't have this purpose. That's a higher level of conversation about how free will fits inside predestination. But on a general earth-based sense, because we live in our finite sphere, what happens to you in your life a lot of it has to do with your accumulated choices. Now, the choices that you have may indeed be predetermined by others. As Confidence with Love says a lot, you always have choices. You may not like them, but you always have them. So, without looking at all the other powers that may or may not be involved in the situation, you have a choice to recognize that you're in idolatry. Either in oh my gosh, all love, or oh my gosh, all hate. You also have a choice to deal with your addiction to drama. Because for some people, that's it. Or not. That's up to you. But I'm going to say it again. Idolatry damns you. Right here, right now. Because if you're not using the technology that we have to listen, to learn, you are making the choice to not pick up information and apply information that you're going to need to make it in these next 10 years. You and your family. We don't need to give all this power to people like Tyler Perry. We don't need to give power to Tony Gaskins either, for that matter, because he said, I don't want it. When you're not learning from me, stop. I want us to be free, and I want us to be learning and growing. That's what I'm going to do the best I can on this channel about. But again, don't come over here because I'm me. Be here because you're learning. And for all of you that allow me to speak into your lives and who feel that you are learning, I appreciate you being here. Thank you very kindly to all 866 of you. Thank you for listening, and y'all have a good day. Bye.